Welcome to Northwest Profiles, a look at people, places, and events of interest in the inland Northwest.
Functionality, design, and craftsmanship, contributing to a sense of individuality and style as well as comfort, all are joined together to create a thing of beauty.
What it is, you're taking something from a two-dimensional flat pattern, turning it into a three-dimensional sculpture, plus the fact that it's moving, it's kinetic. Historically, shoemaking and bootmaking has been called a gentle craft. And everything is, done by hand. And now you can make a shoe by hand using very simple tools, simple equipment, and make it fit, make it durable, make it last, and make it graceful and stylish. So it's a wonderful art form, and it's filled with challenges. And when you're dealing with something as capricious as the human foot, with all of the curves and all the subtleties. And remember, shoes are part of fashion, and fashion is part of vanity. So you have quite a tall order there, but it's absolutely one of the most satisfying kinds of art forms.
For some, like Valerie Clausen, the art of shoemaking is something very special, something that most people take for granted. As a child, Valerie's interest in footwear was piqued by her being dazzled by the sight of beautiful hand-beaded moccasins. In the mid-1970s, she began constructing after-ski boots for the Eddie Bauer Company out of Seattle. Valerie eventually graduated to lasted footwear after studying with the renowned shoemaker Gaza Bowen.
Leather has a memory, and you can take a piece of wet, floppy leather and shape it over a shoe last. And when it dries, it will assume the shape of the last. Different kinds of leathers are used for different kinds of types of footwear and techniques. Obviously, for a lady's shoe, a fashion shoe, you don't need anything as hulky as you're going to be using for a cowboy boot. That shoe is not going to be out tromping on the range. It's probably going to be tromping in the shopping mall. So, you select your materials accordingly.
Through time, materials played an important role in the history of footwear. The oldest known material was made of woven sagebrush bark dating back about 10,000 years.
Throughout history, things got slicker and slicker, and by the Roman times and the ancient Egyptian times, you had sandals with soles. A lot of times Egyptian armies would have pictures of their enemies, so they'd be stepping on their enemies.
In 1590, heels came into the picture. Developed for several reasons, heels helped keep feet out of the untidy streets. They were great for enhancing the height of monarchs who desired to stand above their subjects, and they also helped hold feet into stirrups while horse riding. Evolving from the platform shoes worn by Greek actors, the chopine became a popular offshoot.
Up till this time, shoes had been left and right. And as I said, everything was done by hand, so the shoemakers all carved their lasts. They carved lefts and rights. And with a flat shoe, it really wasn't any problem. But once you started getting into heels, then you got into different heights of heels for different individuals.
Problems arose within the guilds that controlled shoe and boot making because of the impending costs of making specialized lasts for these heel heights.
So they came up with the idea of just making one last. And that last was a straight last. So in other words, you didn't have a left or a right. And it's probably a classic example of fashion and commerce colliding, because what they did was they convinced the public that you were in the latest fashion if you wore straight shoes.
For about 300 years, until the invention of the pantograph, straight shoes were the norm.
Fashion really mirrors the social conditions of the day. And women were often wearing very flimsy, very elegant cloth shoes, and they were very lovely and very beautiful. But obviously you can't go very far in a soft cloth shoe if you're walking in wet ground. Certainly women's freedom was greatly hobbled by the footwear that they wore. And Queen Victoria finally, when she bought Balmoral in Scotland, said, gee, I want to walk out in the hills. Well, you're certainly not going to do it in these little pretty satin slippers. So consequently, the shoemakers rushed to her aid, and J. Sparks Hall developed probably the first elastic-sided boot.
By this simple development, women became more active, hence the augmentation of button and lace-up boots in the 1870s. Shoemaking was one of the last crafts to become mechanized. When the sewing machine was developed by Singer in 1856, many shoemakers' livelihoods were threatened. So to prove the quality of their craft, they produced prize shoes, where they would hand-stitch 64 stitches or more to the inch to show they were as good, if not better, than a machine.
I think it's something that even today we can relate to. But shoe factories employed many, many people. Nowadays, a lot of the shoemaking is done overseas. Shoes now obviously are available to everyone. They're a lot less expensive because of that. So there are pros and cons, definitely. But I must say, I feel that quality has been sacrificed tremendously.
Artistic expression is practiced throughout Valerie's craft. Take, for instance, these shoes.
I wanted to design a line of shoes that was inspired by what we call intrepid women. Women who have kind of broke through conventions.
Gertrude Bell was her chosen subject, a learned woman, educated at Oxford University, and a world traveler, traveling extensively in the Middle East. A good friend of T.E. Lawrence and King Faisal, the first king of Iraq.
She led a very amazing life. And there's been a lot written about her, and she has a lot of diaries and journals. So I thought it would be interesting to make a pair of shoes in homage to her. Also to include writings by her and about her in the shoes themselves. And again, you know, our shoes carry us on journeys, and they certainly took her on many journeys.
It's good leather.
Gary and Clara McGlasson's journey began in Texas, where Gary was a parachute rigger in the Marine Corps. After a stint of driving truck, they decided to spend 2 years in school learning the craft of bootmaking. Eventually, both packed up their belongings and moved to Spokane to be near Clara's family. In business since 1987, Clara sees the work as a tradition.
Yes, I do see it carrying on into even my kids will learn how to do this. We will not build a boot any other way. Now we'll build some shoes and things like that, but it is a tradition, and we're going to carry it on as far as we can. We've kept our 40 penny nail, and we're going to keep it in it. That's one of our selling points in our boots. Our customers enjoy the nice arch support that stays with them year after year after year.
We do different things that the old timers used to do, such as stitch patterns are different. We cater more to how you want the boot built. Plus, not being an old-time cowboy-type bootmaker, I tend to do a few things that they didn't, decorative-wise. We do the traditional work. I'll copy an old antique pattern, like an old Hires pattern or something like that. Or I really enjoy drawing my own. But everybody gets a different stitch pattern on our Western boots. No two pair are alike, unless they're yours, and then each yours will look alike, and you'll be able to spot them in a pile 10 yards off. Don't steal no chickens in our boots. People will know who you are.
Another thing that sets their boots apart from most others are the use of wooden pegs.
Most folks don't use that anymore because it adds 2 hours to a pair of boots. But it also adds 2 years in longevity because the wood swells with the leather as it gets wet. It shrinks back. When it shrinks back and stays tight.
Cowboy boots aren't the only boots they make. Work boots also figure into the mix. Quality handmade footwear has one thing in common: the fit.
Education is a big part of what we do because people don't know you can do this. They have no idea, much less that they'll fit like nothing they've ever had and they can stand all day on concrete floor and not hurt their feet because we take the time to fit. A pretty boot is useless if it's sitting in the closet. It ain't doing me or them no good at all.
Gary and Clara share the workload, each having tasks that one has mastered better than the other.
Gary does all the pretty stuff. He does all the stuff that you see, and I do all the functional stuff, the stuff that's on the bottom of your feet, the stuff you walk on, the stuff that you can't see. I enjoy what I do. A lot of people say that your wife does pretty stitch work, but I don't do it. He does it.
With many machines and tools being antique and skilled craftsmen passing on, the construction of handmade cowboy boots is quickly becoming a thing of the past.
The problem is not in the demand, the problem is with the supply. There's not many young makers anymore. It's not something that you can get rich at. It's very, very labor intensive. One of my instructors told me one time is you can teach a man a craft, but you can't teach him pride in craftsmanship.
By building an average of 4 or 5 pair of boots per week, the McGlassons keep fairly busy. And to keep the orders coming in,
we'll make a trade show or a cowboy gathering. We try to go where we've got a high ratio of folks that are interested in this.
On Ford trucks. They have built the biggest, prettiest trucks in the world for how long?
Whenever we build them, a lot of fellas that use them hard, working cowboys, they need spur shelves. Saddle bronc riders, they don't want to shank at all. They want to be able to grip the stirrup with their feet. Bareback riders, they want their boots to be able to come off easy, but stay on while they're spurring. I mean, everybody's got a little different trick, and every cowboy thinks he knows just by gosh how to build them right. Folks ask me a lot of times, say, man, you're an artist. Well, I don't know that I'm an artist yet. I claim to being a craftsman now. I can draw just about anything I can build. It's artwork, sure, but it's artwork that has to fit and work. That's the key.
together, Valerie, Gary, and Clara's interests have melded to form a friendship with common goals, stemming from a singular source.
There's an old dictum, form follows function. And obviously there are certain things that a shoe or a boot has to do because it's working with a human foot, but beyond that, the sky's the limit.
If you have a topic for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington, 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.